everyone, and welcome back to the RedSeaPodcast. Finally, been a bit. I missed this after taking a bit of a sick leave for like few days, but I'm back, and I'm back with an episode of the series that I love doing, that I know you all love watching, and I'm back with one of the guests that I wanted to get on ever since this show started about a year ago. And that, of course, is someone that you all know. Aris, how are you, man?
How are you doing, Dennis? Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm sure that everyone knows you, everyone knows the show. You are sort of the ones that did pave the way for platforms like this one to exist. You all know that my work is inspired by yours as well. But for those of you that may not know you more personally, and that's the first thing I want to get into more or less. How did you start supporting Olympiacos? How did you get into the inner workings of being a fan of this club and family?
So when I was growing up and when I was playing football, there really wasn't a lot of access outside of at the time it wasn't even MLS. It was a different league back then. So we didn't have a lot of access to what soccer, quote unquote, here. And when I was growing up, even when I was playing myself in middle school or high school, you really, cable wasn't not everybody had cable here. I remember when we first got cable and I could only watch two teams. I could watch Manchester United or Arsenal. Here and there, depending on the match, some Real Madrid, Barcelona back then too, before later, 2010 and onward when things were becoming more readily available. But when I was younger, I couldn't watch much. It was those two things, and I usually watched Arsenal. But when I was playing, my Bapu, who was from Piria, and then he and my Yaya had established roots in Galimno. When he saw that I was playing soccer, he said, "Listen, you're Greek and you need to have some Greek connection to Podosfera." My Bapu didn't care about sports at all, but because I was playing soccer, he wanted me to have something to hold on to that was Greek. Of course, the Ethnic Yomada was one thing, and then Olympiakos was the second. So he would get me things like newspaper things for Olympiakos. He would show me where to find them, and we would, he knew nothing about it, but he just wanted to make sure I had something that was Greek to hold on to. And then, I one of my trainers was actually an assistant under Bayevic. He had started in Olympiakos New Jersey program back then. So I trained with him, and then he showed me where to watch things. I would watch taped games with him all the time. Olympiakos, whether it was in the league, Champions League, things like that. So that's where it all began. And then it continued when I went into college. And then I met a lot of other Greeks that were big Olympiakos fans. We would watch games together. So that's really where it all started.
And of course, that's where most of us start, especially the ones that are outside of the country. But while you were getting, let's say, pulled in to, to this club, what would you say was the moment where you felt like, yeah, this is the club that I love more than any other? What just sparked that special connection that you have with the team now?
I, you know, as far as like individual games, I can't think of an individual game that I saw that I was like, "Oh, this is my club." It was more like certain players that I would watch and say, "Man, I have to watch this guy." And, when I was very little, it was Garapialis. Garapialis was something else, man. Um, people say he was like Fortunis. My old coach used to call him, the Fortunis before the Fortunis. Like, I used to love Yanakopoulos. I used to love watching Djordjevic. So this was really early on. And then there were always players that would like bring me back. Like I love to watch these players. I love to watch highlights because watching a lot of games live, especially when I was younger, was not unless I would go with my papu to the cafeteria or something and watch the games there. I could not watch them live. I didn't have satellite or anything. It would be a lot of replays. So it was more so the players that Olympiacos had that would draw me watching clips of those old players. That includes Giovanni. That includes, of course, Rivaldo when he came. A lot of magical players that I used to just love to watch replays of over and over and over again. Do you know what VHS is, Dennis? Do you know what a VHS tape is?
Did my audio cut out?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, now you're okay. I just missed the last few words that you said.
Do you know what it's called? A VHS tape. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, of course I do.
Okay, so that's what I would get. I would get from my papu. I would get from my trainer these tapes, VHS tapes that would go into a VCR, which probably some of yours and a lot of my followers have no idea what that is. And I would just have these recordings, and I would put them in and rewind them and replay them. It would be games, games of Carapialis, games of Giovanni, games of Rivaldo, and I would just watch those over and over again, just like Euro 2004. So that was it was the players really that would always bring me to Olympiacos early on, and I would appreciate that. And then as I got older, the older I got, it was less about the players themselves and more about the club and the competitions that it was in.
Yeah, it all ties in, as you said, to limited access, and it's not really the fact that, of course, with social media and all YouTube and stuff, access becomes broader due to like just personal motive to find games and stuff. But why do you think that there is such limitations from Greek media to just export games from clubs like for clubs like Olympiacos, knowing that there is such a huge fan base outside of the country as well? I know that you've talked about it many times in the past. I've done my research as well. Why do you think that is?
Dennis, this is a really complicated issue as far as Greece is concerned, unfortunately. And it stems from the fact the biggest thing is the fact that these teams, this includes Olympiakos until very recently, they don't realize exactly how big things are. And a lot of what you hear from not just the fans, but it's club executives. And I'm not just talking about Olympiacos, I'm talking about other clubs in Greece, the media executives. The first thing that will come out of their mouth is, who will care outside of Greece about, Olympiacos and things like that? Olympiacos isn't like that anymore. But even when we first got started, if you listen to the interview we did with Karapapas, he even brought this up himself. He said, thanks to like projects like ours, projects now like yours, and everybody that's doing them, people didn't really appreciate how big Greek football was, especially because of what was done in 2004. They let huge opportunities go to waste. Now, of course, there was the recession and everything that happened, but the fact of the matter is that the Greeks in Greece, especially, and the ones that are running these clubs, they don't give enough credit to the product. And now it's more important than ever that they have to embrace that and say, look, people want to watch this. And that's not just the clubs. It's in EPO, the Hellenic Football Federation. It's in the media, the media magnets. They don't believe that there's a huge appetite they don't believe that it's possible that you can have an appetite for Greek football outside of Greece and the Greek diaspora. They just don't believe it. And I'm saying this I've had conversations with the executives at Novasport. I've had conversations with the executives at Cosmote. I've had conversations with the third-party media that they deal with to get broadcasts outside of Greece. They just don't believe there's the appetite for it. Then we come along and we show, hey, no, there is. Look at this. People care. Winning the Conference League, of course, elevates the profile of Olympiacos and Greek football. And now with Champions League coming back to Greece for the first time in group stage league phase football, the first time in 6 years, then this is huge. This is huge just to grow what is now a product that people are recognizing because a Greek club won a European title. So the where it starts from is the fact that nobody in so many of these levels of Greek football believe that people care about Greek football outside of Greece. That's where it stems from.
I know that, as you said, you've had conversations, and I know that you've had some classes with people as well. But as you said, it all is complicated in more than one way. But as you mentioned, the project that you guys ran, the revolutionary project when you started, because I'm pretty sure that you are one of the first, if not the first, that just hugged and brought in the funds globally and didn't just focus on the Greek market. It's more than an amazing example for the fact that not only Olympiacos, of course, Olympiacos is the main factor here, but Greek football in general is loved and watched in every continent that there is. But rewinding back just a bit, when you first started, how did the conversation come about to start this whole thing? And what were your initial goals and maybe even doubts in starting what is now Thrylos7 International?
So the way it started was actually we had I went to college at a place called University of Maryland. That's where I attended university along with Lambros Sirmos and at the time our founding member Peter Thompson. Not Greek, no affiliation to anything Greek, was just friends with Lambro. And when we started this, we started a Facebook group called Olympiakos Maryland because it was all the Greeks. We had a Greek club in University of Maryland that I started with a friend of mine, or I should say we brought back to life. And all these Greek kids that followed Greek sports, especially Greeks from Greece, a lot of them were Olympiakos fans. And we said, you know what, let's just start a Facebook group with just so we can talk about Olympiakos. And we had this group. I was at the time doing my master's. I was doing an MBA. And Lambro was in undergrad with Peter. So we started this group. We were talking about games. This was back in we had started it, I believe, the year before Martins came, a year or two before Martins came, if my memory serves. And we just kept up with it. And then finally during COVID, Lambro one day sends a message out to the group. He said, guys, you know, we were talking about how we were listening to all these podcasts in English for various teams, Portuguese teams. There was one for Turkey, all these different ones. And we said, how come there's nothing for Greece? There's nothing that covers Greek football. You know, Olympiacos is a big club. It deserves, there's a big enough diaspora. It deserves to have something. So Lambro said, why don't we do it? Let's just do it. The three of us, it's COVID. There's lockdowns. We don't have a lot to do. Let's just do it. So I said no like 3 times. It was a multiple week thing. Lambro said, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just do something. And I kept saying, no one cares. No one's going to listen to us. Like, who are we? Who am I? Absolutely not. But, you know, Lambro just kept pressing. And finally I said, all right, let's do it. We're going to do it today. It's Sunday. Let's just see what happens. So we did it. We opened up Zoom, a free Zoom link. We just recorded it was like a 30-minute session, I think. And then maybe 40 minutes. I don't know. I don't even remember exactly how long the session was, but we had fun just talking about Olympiakos. We were talking about the season, Pedro Martins before COVID. It was the middle of the COVID break, what we were accepting, how excited we were. And it just went from there. From the beginning, I mean, when we did that first episode, we made social media accounts and we started posting it. The initial influx of people, you know, a couple hundred people from on each platform, like, hey, this is great. And we were getting a lot of listens the first time. We were getting some pretty great support across social media channels. And we were at the time, we were the very first English speaking, Greek podcast to actually like sit there and do something that was organized. So we got great support. And then because there was nobody else, people were asking us to cover European games, and it just kind of grew from there. Didn't expect it. I honestly, Dennis, I thought that we would get maybe like 10, 20 people listening, and we would not want to do it because nobody beyond that would actually care for it anymore. But then the proof for me, when we were getting 100 listeners, 200 listeners, 300, for an episode, subscribers here. We started the YouTube, I think 6 or 8 months later, and then seeing those subscribers go up, social media grow. In the end, I had told the guys, if we ever broke 10,000 followers on a single platform, I would believe we were actually starting to get big. And we did that on Instagram back in November. And since then, it's been kind of skyrocketing. So I never believed anything would be possible. I was probably the biggest naysayer from the beginning. And just the experiences, the people we've met, and the ability to continue to grow this and talk about Olympiacos in media across the world, Greece, it's changed not just my view of how Olympiakos is and how big the brand of Olympiakos is, but the appetite for Greek football. It's completely changed everything for me.
I feel like it's not changed the view just for you guys. I feel like you've managed to just shift the view, as you said, not only for Olympiacos, but Greek football in general, and not only the positives, but the glaring negatives as well. And dare I say that you managed to even make a change in how people in the clubs themselves see Greek football for
Yes.
arguably the thousands and thousands of people that follow you now. How you said that you started with you, Lambros and Peter. How did
Mhm.
everyone else just slowly come in?
So at the same time when we started the podcast, let me start this way. We've added more than a few members as time has worn on. Kostas Lianos, who's a reporter for The Sun, had joined the project and has been involved for years. Kostas Levoyanis, who from Belgium, he was one of I think he was literally the first addition that we made to the podcast, and that was maybe a half a year into the project. He was when we met him, he had just started his Olympiakos EU Twitter account when we started the channel. And he actually, when we came in, he was critical. And the reason we got that first interview with Stelios Giannakopoulos. So he jumped on. He's a social media guy also. That's like what he does for work. So he was huge in getting us to like pivot our strategy, learn how to make proper graphics, learn how to do these types of connections, this and that. So that was massive. And then we met Martial, who he's French. He's been a diehard Olympiacos fan for a very long time, and he's also not Greek. He's a journalist for La Nouvelle République in France, and he's just been following Olympiacos. His family loves to go to Greece. He's got a connection to Greece because of how often he's been there. Loves the country, and he was a massive Olympiacos supporter. Like I said, he runs that Olympiacos FR account, which was one of his ways to kind of just produce and grow in the French market everything about Olympiacos. So Martial was a later addition. And then Dimitri is the newest addition. Dimitri Quimsidis, he does a lot more basketball, a lot of Olympiacos basketball coverage, even though he does watch the football too. But he came on, I think it's been almost 2 years now since he joined. And same thing, he's a journalist in London. He was living in New York, and he loved Olympiacos, saw that we needed some help, especially with the basketball coverage. So we brought him on, and just to add, to continue to grow the coverage. That's literally how we've found everybody, just kind of doing things, interacting with people, and then bringing them on as we go.
Of course, I hope that with Dimitri's been gone for a while now, that you managed to make the change for basketball that you did for football as well, because as much as it gets treated like a national sport, I feel like it's been a bit of a letdown recently in coverage and the whole toxicity going on and stuff. I'm sure that you know more than anyone what I'm exactly talking about. But yeah, for sure, it's been a long few years for you and excitement filled for sure, idea filled, experience filled, and anything and everything you can say. But if you could pinpoint just one achievement that you've achieved either on your own or with the show in the last few years, what would be your top thing up until now?
Top thing. Oh man, I don't know if I can pick a top. We've had some crazy we've I mean achieved things that I never thought were possible. Joining One Football, that was really big for us. Becoming recognized media in Greece and Olympiakos especially. So that's cool. All the games that we go to where we do our match coverage, where we do the vlogs, we're sitting in the press area. We're part of the press. We interview the players, talk to the players. Um, the Football Content Awards was massive. Being next to podcasts like Arscast, AFTV, massive channels, fantasy football at the Athletic. So being there was huge because I never expected that we would be like part of these podcasts that are known, and this is what they do. These guys make tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising, and we're sitting here as finalists in the same breath as them, which was crazy. So I can't pick just one moment. There's just been so many that have just completely boggled the mind in terms of where we came from. So I don't think I could pick one. There's so many different things that I could point to as huge moments for us.
And I think it's very safe to say that with the work that you put in, it's more than well deserved. I did want to focus on the whole award thing just a bit more. Can you just analyze not only your thoughts about how it was to be there, but your first thoughts when you saw that there was your name and your project's name there as a nomination?
So, so when we were told that we were nominated and we were finalists, not just nominated, because in the category we were in, there were hundreds of podcasts that they filtered through, and they went with I think it was 10 podcasts that were finalists out of hundreds just in our category and thousands that were nominated for the whole thing. But being told that we were finalists, getting that email, at first I thought it was a scam. And I was like, who is this? I've never heard of, what's Football Content Awards? I was like, is this a scam? But then, we looked it up, and it's a real nonprofit. They've been doing this for a long time. But the coolest part about it, Dennis, wasn't the fact that we were nominated in general, but it was the fact that we were told while we were there that we were the first finalists that focused on anything Greek football related. So being the first Greek football oriented podcast to ever be a finalist in the Football Content Awards was huge. I mean, and this thing is sponsored. It was sponsored by Meta. There were major media organizations there. Like I said, The Athletic was there. Most of the British sports media outlets were there as well. So that was really cool, being the first Greek podcast or Greek sports related anything to be featured there. Even if we didn't win anything, just the fact that we made it to that point was really cool.
It has to be more than surreal, and it sometimes isn't, as you said, about winning anything, but not only for the experience, but for the doors that it can open. And one door that has opened for you guys recently was, I think, one of the biggest announcements that I've seen you make ever since the start. And that's the collaboration with One Football.
Right.
Do you want to talk about
Massive.
how that came about?
That actually came out of nowhere. It was before, so we had learned that we had gotten nominated for the as finalists as Football Content Awards, and we got a message from somebody from One Football. They had talked to us about the lack of Greek football content, and they said, listen, it was just one guy, and he said, I suggest that you send a message here, because especially since Olympiacos won the Conference League, One Football might have an appetite for this. So I did. I just said, you know what? This guy reached out to us. I'm going to send a message. Right, let's give it a shot. And literally within 24 hours, I got a message back from One Football. They said, we really want this type of content. We just checked your channel out. This is awesome. How can we figure this out? Let's get you on board. And then I think at the time I was in Greece when this was happening, and we had just gone on board with One Football. I was figuring out the details and the logistics of getting it all put together, but that kind of just happened out of nowhere, and it's been really cool. We've been reaching a whole new audience base with One Football too, which is massive. One Football also has, I can't say to the exact extent, but I can tell you that One Football has bigger ambitions for covering Greek football too. So that's also been really cool too. But yeah, that was random. That was not something that was planned or that we had a roadmap for. That came out of nowhere.
I would say that I can imagine how crazy it must have felt, but I don't think that anyone can truly put it into words how insane something like that must have been. As you said, you didn't even believe it at first, which is,
No.
I think, the normal human reaction to it all. Just before, actually, a detail that I wanted to ask, and it's a detail that I personally was curious about. It's not even that big of a story, I'm sure. Was the name change necessary, or was that a choice?
The bigger we were getting, the more media was mistaking us for Gate 7 official. And in the summer, like that, the summer after we won the conference, before we changed the name, there were multiple large articles that were citing us as the official Gate 7. So it was just getting to the point where we were getting bigger. We're getting mentioned in media. I mean, many articles, and we were just sending constant messages and emails to the editors, guys, we're not official Gate 7. We're a podcast. We're not part of it. So at that point, it was guys, we realized we had to do something and change it, because the media was mistaking us for official Gate 7. So we had to change it there.
So it was okay. It was a practical choice. That makes way more sense, and I didn't even think about it like that. On a more serious note, and a note that I personally, and I'm sure many others that try to do this and try to even have fun while doing this and connect people. How did you first deal with the toxicity that, of course, surrounds Greek football and social media platforms, and any hate, whether it was, why aren't you speaking Greek, which is the biggest thing that even I've been targeted with, and I'm sure you have 100 times more, but general quote unquote hate comments as well at first. And how do you deal with it now? Has anything changed? Or did you feel just calm and just collected about it ever since the beginning?
So I would say it depends on the type of toxicity that you're dealing with, right? So obviously we still deal with it now. παιδιά, γιατί εσείς μιλάτε αγγλικά, this is Olympiakos, blah, blah, blah. So we used to kind of take turns dealing with it. Look, this is a channel for international, blah, blah, blah. We all speak Greek, the usual. We would kind of take turns replying. But now we've gotten to the point where we're big enough. I can't even type fast enough to reply because somebody else usually jumps in and says something. So it used to be really annoying because you know what you're trying to accomplish, and some of these other people don't. And unfortunately, there's a lot of Greeks in Greece, especially, that are very protective of Olympiakos, and deep down they have this feeling that if Olympiakos goes into the mainstream, that they lose it, right? Like it'll be less accessible to them. Does that make sense? That kind of fear about it. But that's really where I think it stems from. So, in the beginning, it was really frustrating because we had to really come to terms with the fact that, look, not everybody's going to like this type of project. They see Olympiakos is Greek and it belongs to Greece. Nobody else should care, or nobody else should have that type of hold over it. The club doesn't believe that. I can tell you that much. The club wants to grow this as big as they can outside of Greece. So it's, you just kind of have to take it for what it is. You respond and you move on. That's it. You can't take it personally. That's really how we view most toxicity. There's the reason I ask, or the reason I bring up different types, because there's different types of toxicity that come with this, right? You have people that say, hey, this is Greek football, you shouldn't be speaking Greek. Then of course you get it from the Kazura, like from the other fans, right? You get stuff from the other fans, you have to deal with that separately. That you take tongue in cheek, you deal with it, you try to be playful with it, you try to give it back to some people. That type of banter is good for a channel in general, as long as you're not getting too ridiculous with it. Then there's the toxicity that comes with things related to the club, like transfers, results, because people can get very protective over the club if you're too critical, and things like that. Media in Greece is not like in America or in the UK. Here in the States or in the UK, people get really aggressive with football clubs, very critical. In Greece, it's not so much. The media that's attached, especially media that's attached to the club, is very rarely critical of the club. So having to balance that criticism when it's not something that's the way it's done in Greece, and then having people come to you like, oh, you want to hurt the club, you want to do this. The only thing you can do is just say, hey, look, this is, I love Olympiakos always. These are just things that I see. I don't think anybody in particular I'm not saying anything mean about it. I'm just talking about the situation. And, you saw a lot more of that toxicity around the criticism of the club before Mendilibar came, in the post Pedro Martins, even that last season of Pedro Martins, and to the point where even the mainstream media in the mainstream Olympiacos media in Greece was starting to get critical of the club, and you kind of saw how the club reacted to that. So it's just done differently in Greece. So you have to be aware of that. You have to be cognizant of the fact that the culture in Greece is different from the culture outside of Greece. So you have to manage that differently, and you have to also really be, when you're talking about the club, constructive. You see something, you're constructive in the feedback that you give, even across social media. The Olympiakos world is not massive, if that makes sense. So you just have to remember, this is a cultural thing anywhere you go, right? You have to be mindful of how things are done in certain places, so that you don't just come in and offend people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And as you said, it all just maybe sometimes needs for you to take a step back and look at the best approach to everything. You spoke a bit about how Greek media is run differently, let's say. If, of course, you can speak on the matter, because I don't know how possible it is. Have you ever, or anyone of you guys, have you ever had like a major disagreement or clash with any part of the Greek media, whether that's Olympiacos focused or not? And if so, and of course, if you can talk about it, how did you approach that, given how not serious, how big it may seem to someone that doesn't have as much insight as you do?
You mean like did we ever get in an argument with a major media figure? Is that what you're asking? Oh, Dennis, I think you're muted. Sorry.
Figure, or whether it's in general just someone. Am I still muted?
No. I'm thinking about the answer because we've never had like an open.
Okay.
Let me put it this way: we've never had an open disagreement with a media figure. In general, we disagree with a lot of the takes that many of Greek media sites have. I've been very clear about this, especially on the show, that I think a lot of the analysis in Greece is very lacking, and we like to look at numbers. We kind of call it like it is, and even from people in Greece, and it's not just, I'm not talking about from the Olympiakos end, like multiple club executives have talked to us and said like, oh, your analysis is different. You actually look at things, you analyze, you use data, you back things up. So while we disagree with a lot of what many different media takes are and how they analyze things, we've never had an open disagreement I can think of with any particular media. A lot of media in Greece even cites us now. We have some great relationships with journalists. A lot of journalists. There's some very good journalists in Greece, despite the fact that maybe media is not on the same level as what we're used to here in the States or in the UK. But there is some very top-notch journalists in Greece, some great analysis that goes on. So, but yeah, we've never had an open disagreement, and we've never really been directly attacked. But like, can I say that by media that I can remember? So
Yeah, more than fair enough. It's just the same, like you mentioned that while there are some amazing journalists here that you can see, whether it's Olympiacos related or sports related in general, the media just seems a bit out of touch in most aspects. I think that you are very well known for, in general, aside from any analysis, is the interviews that you guys do. Do you have any that stand out as your favorites, or do you just have a bunch of them up there as the ones you enjoyed the most?
you know, um, there were some really good and fun interviews. Like um, Holebas was Holebas was a very refreshing interview because he does not care. He will say whatever's on his mind. He's not political or diplomatic. He just says it like it is. Like that's his personality. Um, Zelia was a fun interview. That guy is like he's a personality. He's such a nice guy. He's so funny. Um, one of the funniest moments in an interview I can remember was when we asked Zelia what his favorite Greek phrase was. And at the end of the interview, he's like, "Ela re malaka." That was his favorite thing to do, or to say. And he would the way he explained to us, like off camera, like how he would communicate with people. That was really fun. Um, I have to say, actually, I enjoyed over the summer, the interview we did with Garapapas, because like it was very relaxed, like casual. He was kind of just talking to us like we were friends, like didn't have to have formal questions for him. We just, as we say in the US, we shot the shit basically. He just kind of told us what was going on, and that was really cool. We're hoping that we can do something else like that with him again this summer. that was really fun. That was like almost 3 hours too, with Karapapas. It was a fun chat. There's been some really good interviews. Patreon interview. I got to do a really nice interview with Atromiros CEO Katia Koksenoglu. Amazing woman. She's really cool. Trying to think what other interviews. We did an interview with so he was part of the Olympiacos DC Academy down here, and he played in Alpha Topiko in Greece for, I think it was Iliopoli, and they got promoted to Game Ethniki while he was there. And his experience, like in the under divisions of Greek football, were pretty insane. So it was some really good interviews. Really good interviews. I'm sure I'm forgetting some too, but we had some great interviews. Giannakopoulos will always be as our first interview. Like, he was a hero of mine. Giannakopoulos. I told you, him, Karapialis, like, those guys were my heroes. I wanted to be Giannakopoulos. So getting to talk to him was insane for me. I was so giddy. Man, I'm trying to think. Dudu was a great interview. Like, what a nice guy. Peter Filipakos was hilarious too. And now he started the project at Athens Kalithea, which he alluded to on the interview back then that we did. So that was all really cool.
I personally, and I'm sure that many people agree, I have to give that Bouloubassis interview, that slight edge. It's an interview I've had many times. But I'm sure that with how Bouloubassis, I'm sure that he was ecstatic to do that from the start.
Yeah, he had never done one. He had never talked to anybody in Greece apparently before. We didn't know that. We found that out after the fact. But yeah,
I don't think that
good.
He's done any interview separately about Olympiacos, aside of course the main media in general. Still, if I'm not that mistaken. But an interview that you did talk about as one of your favorites, of course. It was one of the most interesting, of course. But by some people, in my eyes as well, was a bit unexpected. And of course, I am talking about another man that's not that well known for his interviews, and that's Karapapas. How did that even get planned?
So that is a little bit of a long story, because it didn't just like start. Though our relationship with the club has evolved over years, and it's kind of not by even though we enjoy it. Of course, you always hope and want the club to speak to you, to have a relationship with people within the club, but like, it didn't happen in a structured way or an intentional way. We kind of like, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like, we kind of fumbled our way into that. Like, and again, this was all part of situations and conversations or things that happened that really surprised us and the club with how big our reach was, which was then how all of this started to pan out, because it really started with kind of, I guess, the club more recognizing that we were getting pretty big. Our reach was getting big. News that was being made, if we reported it, would reach all of these different countries, would go into media. We were getting quoted in media all the time, as I mentioned to you before. So by default, I guess they kind of realized like, hey, all right, these guys are, even if they're not in Greece, they're a podcast outside. Maybe they don't have a gigantic social media following yet, or they don't have a gigantic footprint. They're still able to get word and information of what's going on in Greece or outside, and it goes everywhere, whether it's in Greece or around the world. So from that point, we worked with them on various things, and then as we continued to have dialogue with various people, it started to build up and up and up. We started to do interviews. We would pop up in Greek media a lot too, not just with our analysis, but with a lot of other things, news we broke. Part of, I think, what got us on the radar is, we've developed a network of journalists, of agents, of club executives that I told you before. We're connected with so many people now. that this project has put us in touch with. And because of that, we're able to get some information now. So I think because of that, we've now been able to open this dialogue with the club. And then the more you speak, the more you develop relationships. Of course, I told you, we go to the games when we're in Greece, we go sit in the press area. So you start to develop those relationships. But yeah, after the conference league, like all of that built up, and then the conference league win, it was just so magical, and everybody was in such a great mood. And we had kind of been hoping that we could push for something like that. And because everybody was so happy, and that's kind of how it materialized. Like, hey, this is an international outlet. We now have a way to get our voice out. And that's probably how the club viewed it. So that's really how that ended up working out. It was really just a matter of circumstance, multiple circumstances snowballing that allowed us to kind of develop a closer relationship in that respect.
It's not like you lack things with you. Just you fail to mention how hard you guys just have been working day in and day out for everything that's common. Of course, keeps common. You did slightly touch on the vlogs, the fan cams, and everything like that. Of course, I've had the pleasure to be on one of the vlogs to meet
That's right.
the two Kostas and Kostas with a C.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask that if again, if there is one that you can point out, what's the best and what's the worst experience meeting people in real life, either for a vlog or someone just saying hello to any of you in general, has ended up being?
So I don't think I had a bad experience meeting somebody. You know what I mean? Like nobody, like I've never met a rival fan. First of all, let me be clear also. It's not like every day somebody recognizes me, right? Like
Yeah.
when I'm in Greece, like people don't usually recognize me unless I'm in Athens, or unless I'm in Piraeus, unless I'm in the Olympiakos side of town, we'll say. So it's not like it happens that often. I've had some really weird instances where people recognize me. I don't know. Are you familiar with the landscape of the United States, like the geography?
Yeah.
Do you know where
The
Tennessee
100%.
is?
Yeah, I do.
So one of the weirdest settings, or I shouldn't say weird, the coolest settings where I met somebody was in a Starbucks. My family was on vacation visiting my yaya and papu at the time because they retired out there, and I was in a Starbucks, and the barista, he was Nigerian. And I walk up to, I order my coffee. He's making the coffee, and he turns around while he's making the coffee, and he's like, "You look really familiar." So I have no idea. If we've met, I have no idea. He goes, no. He goes, it's soccer related. He goes, do you do stuff for Olympiacos? I said, yeah, I'm a huge Olympiacos. I said, I have a channel. He goes, he's like, I watch your channel. And he had it as he was making the drink. He had the channel on his phone. I remember taking a picture and sending it to the guys because he had been following Nigerian guy, lives in Tennessee, and he had been following Olympiacos because Nigerians had come to play for Olympiacos, and he had been following Olympiacos ever since Emmanuel Emenike came to play for Olympiacos back in the day, however many years ago that was, 7 years ago, I think, 8 years ago, actually. And that's when he started following the club. And then he started following the channel because it was English coverage, so that he could keep up with it, because we've had Nigerians since then too. Henry Onyekuru came. We've had players, and we've always had in Olympiakos' history here and there different Nigerian players. So crazy. That was probably crazy. I've met cab drivers in Greece that recognize me. They don't like my opinions on things, but they still recognize me nonetheless. But that was probably the one that stuck out. Just like some random guy, a Nigerian guy in the middle of Tennessee, knew who I was. That was pretty cool.
I mean, we currently have a Nigerian as well.
Yeah.
In Bruno. Yeah. Because Onyekuru is not an example I accept sitting on, because Jesus Christ, that must have felt incredible. And I think that's one of the best examples you can use, that your platform has just reached Olympiacos fans all over the place. And as with myself, of course, my co-host, as you may know, as everyone else knows, is American. He's Greek American, and his stories are also like, well, some of the most amazing I've heard. And again, the proof that one of the main proofs, at least, that's changed my whole perception on Olympiacos as well, completely. Just to finish up a few more things, I won't occupy you for much longer. Uh, a more of a general and perhaps more of a cliche question. Uh, what if there is anything, because the club is in a better place than it's been for a while now? I think that's more than safe to say. Is there anything that you would change in how the club is run in any aspect, whether that's football, media, or anything like that? Or do you think that Olympiacos is finally just heading in that perfect direction that it should?
So I think Olympiakos, or maybe specifically, this is a Marinakis thing too. He learns a lot from what works in England, and then tries to bring that here. Um, as far as how like the club is run, I think how they're pivoting now, since especially this past summer, even the summer before with Gordon, when he came on as sporting director, the mindset there I think was correct. Get footballing people making football decisions, and trust your scouting. He's creating a great scouting network with the football group, the academy, Sao Paulo, that he's going to end up purchasing a majority interest in. Doing those types of things. I believe that as far as like media is concerned, I think the club can do a little bit better social media wise. Not just engaging other channels, but just in terms of the product, because like you look at Balk, for example, and like their media game is top notch. So somebody that can kind of do that, make things more cinematic in that respect. But the club has done amazing. It's done amazing work and made some very like incredible improvements. I mean, you saw what we put on for the drone show, right? For the centenary. I mean, who has done anything like that in Greece? Do you remember Ike's 100-year celebration? A blimp that failed, or a balloon that didn't even go up? Like, Olympiacos, every club has to make improvements, right? Olympiacos has a lot of improvements it can make. But as far as like what goes on in Greece, you can't tell me that in many respects Olympiacos isn't the best. Certain clubs here and there do things better, like I mentioned with Balk, but Olympiacos is improving all the time in these aspects. Commercialization, it could probably do better with. But these are baby steps, especially with Greece. It's all baby steps, and fortunately, it looks like the baby steps are all going in the right direction, which is fantastic.
I honestly couldn't agree more. And of course, for the 100-year celebration, I was there to witness more things in person. And I think it's an experience that honestly you can't really describe. And the feeling that you get, it's something that you can't really describe. So it's more than the right direction. And as you said, with baby steps, everything will keep getting better and better. One final thing that I wanted to ask you, that is a question I've taken on from inspirations in general. And it's nothing Olympiacos related, but for me it's still one of the most important things that someone can keep in their mind. And of course, ever since what happened with me last summer and health-wise and stuff, I have held gratitude in general as a major, major part of my life for whatever aspect that may be in. So, for you, what are the three things, no matter what those may be, that you are most grateful for in life?
Obviously, my family, my two boys, I have, we started the podcast before I had kids. Now I have Mihaly, who was born during the first year that we had the podcast. He's now 4. Yorgo, who's 2. They're, so my family, of course, is the first thing I'm grateful for. I'm grateful also for the community that we've built. The red white community is amazing, and it's so far reaching, and the connections that have been made, not just for us, but for our community members in between. Our Patreon channel, we have Olympiacos fans that are meeting with each other across the globe. One of our patrons came from the US and he went to Finland and hung out with one of our patrons in Finland. We constantly will have people that are from different countries meet up in Greece for Olympiakos games. They'll travel or they'll see each other randomly. And that's probably what, as far as like the show is concerned, that's probably one of the things I'm most grateful for with this project is not, okay, forget what's come with it, the connection to the club, the status, whatever that's come with the channel. The family and the community that's come has been probably the biggest thing. And, the third thing I'll also say probably goes in part to the second thing, which is my co-hosts, the people we do this with, the project. They're not just co-hosts. They're not just people that I do work with, if that makes sense. They're also they're like family to me. You know what I mean? I talk to, we joke, my wife jokes with me. I talk to like Lambro, Costa, Dimitri, and Kostas Lianos more, and Martial. I talk to them more than I talk to my own wife in many respects. So that's the joke. So that's really, it's like the camaraderie is probably the best part of it. Talking to them, Costa and I do a lot of work with like graphic editing and being able to like be comfortable enough to like, hey, I'm doing things I've never done before. I never did graphic editing my whole life before this. And just be like, no, hey, if you screw this up, it's okay. If you post something that people don't like, don't worry about it. You'll eventually find something, you just keep doing it, get comfortable, and then you'll eventually realize what your style is, what people want to see, what they like to see, and that's really cool because you have people that are supportive of what you're trying to do, and it makes you a lot more comfortable and more willing to want to do it, if that makes sense, because we don't get paid to do this. You don't get paid for doing Red Sea. We don't get paid doing this. So you have to be in an environment where people are supportive and make you want to put in the extra time. It has to be fun. So with them, it's fun for me. And because I have that, this great community, all of it makes it really fun and rewarding. And that makes me want to continue doing it. So those are the 3 most important things. The first is obviously my family, but then the second is the community and my co-hosts, the having the support and the environment to want to do this and have fun doing it.
Honestly, I didn't expect a more perfect answer. And to strengthen your points, of course, my co-host Gav is now one of my best friends. In general, in the year that we've been talking, my community, even though compared to yours, it's tiny, but it's more than amazing, and it's gotten me through some of the hardest times that there has been in my life in general over the past year. And as you said, the drive you get from stuff like that is incredible. And with the connection also, I did watch the Conference League final. I don't know if you are aware of this. I don't remember if I told you this. With someone you are probably very familiar with, and that's Thrylos, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched the final together at the Monaco Theatre, which was another experience that honestly words can never and will never be able to describe.
Yeah. And see, Dennis, that right there, you hung out with, he's from Finland. So 2 Greeks, 2 Olympiacos fans from 2 different countries got to meet up, hang out. We're part of the same community. You met up, you hung out, and you got to watch history made together. That's the most beautiful part of this whole thing, for me at least. The fact that happened, that's probably the best part of what either of our projects can do is to be able to be responsible for a meetup like that and the two of you witnessing history together. That's what it's all about. That's the best part of this whole thing.
It's by an absolute mile the best part as well. That's about it, and honestly, an hour is way more than I expected, and I appreciate it very much. I just saw that I kept you on like 10 minutes longer than I should have, so I appreciate the
You're
extra
good.
time as well. And honestly, just thank you, man. And from everyone, thank you for just, as I used many times during the past hour, paving the way for people to do great stuff with Olympiacos.
The only better thing will be if we finally start seeing Olympiakos as a mainstay on like ESPN. That's the goal. Make it mainstream for me so everybody talks about Olympiakos the same way they talk about, the top clubs in England and Spain and in Germany, in Italy. That's what we want. And I'm not going to stop until I see that.
And I'm sure that with everything you've achieved, that will go sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Your mouth to God's
thank you
ears.
Everyone for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow after the basketball game, and we'll talk soon, man. Thank you again.